Sorry, it was back in 2017.
Yeah.
Could have been in 2017. Could have even been 2018. It doesn't matter because I've got all of this saved on somebody else's computer, actually a couple of other people's computers, and I also sent it to the council. Do you remember when there was that, which council did I send it to? I think this is relevant. Breckland Council in Thetford.
Yeah.
I sent this over to Breckland Council because of Sainsbury's, yes, in Attleborough,
Yes.
and then there was Banham Poultry.
Yeah.
The residents, there was a newspaper article where residents were saying that the smell of Banham Poultry was really bad,
Yes, they
and
do.
those new houses that got built. So it was to, I think it was put into the petrol station that they had as well. So it was around this time. Now anyway, I would get my documents printed off of somebody else's stuff, and I asked them if they would hold on to the documents for me and different things like that. So all of these are pretty much safeguarded for me in that aspect. Excuse me. Now what this was including was the electric cars, yeah?
Yeah.
Because I was proper heavy into the idea of taking, probably in 2016,
Yeah.
it was just before July 2017, when Theresa May was about, and on my birthday I wrote to Theresa May
Yes, you did.
saying that we don't do enough to protect technology from CMEs and different things like that, and having asteroid systems that would warn us quicker, and it was probably to put early warning systems that triangulate around the moon and different things like that, so that if anything breached through, because usually they orbit around the moon and then hit into Earth and different things like that, not wanting to scare anyone, and that we didn't do enough to do that, to protect that. And in 2016 I was thinking more about converting, if you remember, but I've been unable to get solar panels since then till now, about converting a car, a remote control car.
Yeah.
It was actually probably a bit before then, actually, maybe 2015, of converting a remote control car into a proper vehicle.
Yeah.
And then after that date, boom, didn't they? I think then after that, Tesla started to boom a few years later, I think.
Yeah.
And I think then it became a household name for everybody. And back at this time, where I've sent this to different companies and different things like that, was to switch batteries out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, how one way I was thinking about charging them was to swap batteries. So you went to a petrol station, rather than waiting for your car to charge up, your car would swap the batteries, just like you do in a remote control car.
Yeah.
Nothing really genius about it. It's already what, when I was a kid, I had a remote control car, but I didn't have a car, I had a hovercraft. Nothing fancy, it just was a fan, a really high powered fan that basically blew downwards with a rubber seal, and this would skim across, so it would go across water unless the batteries got really weak. Then you had fun. And I had 3 batteries.
Yeah.
I was telling you, and then switching them out when one goes flat and then charge the other one, and it was a fast charger at the time anyway. So I learned very early on, if I had one set of batteries, then it would deplete very quickly, and I'd have to wait for them to charge up. So I got another set. It didn't quite cross the threshold of what I needed it for, so I ended up getting 3 and making do with that. So I would take 2 of the flat ones, 2 of the charged ones, and include these. And then I'd still have 2 half charged, and then by the time I flattened these, I could then swap them out with the others, and then take the next set that had charged whilst putting these in. It was just what I did. So that gave me the idea back maybe in 2015 of when I started thinking about this thing in July when I wrote to Theresa May, which I emailed her.
Yeah.
And then it led on to something else because I saw that video of that little girl that walked There was a little girl. There was two boys,
Yeah.
her brothers. They
Yeah,
said in
yeah.
this documentary, and they saw this little boy that was so starving, both of them actually, that they couldn't move.
Yeah.
It touched me. I think it was meant to. 'Cause I was kind of a bit angry at the time with the film crew
Yeah.
because they didn't do enough in my book. But then what could they do? And then they were bringing this to the world. So it was kind of a bit of a mixed emotion for me, that was. But it hurt like hell. It really did. Because I started thinking about my children in that situation, and then how lucky you are, but also it was horrible to feel that lucky just based on geographical location and where you're born.
Yeah.
And that really pissed me off, to be honest. And then it annoyed me that we were throwing away food when it could be made into a ready meal and shipped over, the stuff that we don't
Yeah.
sell, if you like, and set up shop there somehow to feed individuals and then build their energies up. Sorry to say it like that. And find out what goods they had in their land to help them then bring this to the world table. While we supported them, we went there in teams to see what they had on the land, see if there was anything that could be done with the land. Either A, mining some stuff, either B, growing some stuff. And rather than giving money to a nation, it was to go there, support the nation, build them up so that they had strength with food, with our waste food. Once they built up with their strength then we would find out what they had there. When we found out what they had there, it was to then help the natives of that nation know what they've got, and then help them to build up this resource, and then bring that to the world economy, if you like, in order to be able to trade.
Yeah.
So rather than giving money that would seem like, that they could buy some food for a little bit, but then it would dwindle, and then there would need to be keep needing to be pay.
Constant.
And then it would seem like that would then, because I heard a lot of people saying that it would deplete the pots here. The pots would dry up. It would be money going out that just was not sustainable, and it could destabilize the currency, if you like, or the national crisis here, or debts and different things like that. And you'd have to borrow more to pay more to do more. The money goes out. That's a lot of the walls that were built around this sort of stuff. So I thought to myself, I questioned that. How could you do this in a different way? Well, it was to go there and to find how and what they had, build the nation up, give them the strength from our waste product, which would be, if it was going to be sold and it didn't get sold, but it was going to go bad by this date, could we not have the cut off a day before, or 3 days before, or whatever it is, make this food, cut it down, put it into a ready meal pot, and fly it over frozen, warm it up like a microwave under a solar panel or something else like this, and then begin to feed a large amount of individuals. Build up their energy, find out what was good with the land. One thing I noticed that with the lands in the areas that I believed were poor, were they had an awful lot of salt water. And converting salt water into fresh water was one step. Another one was to find out what grows in their climate, find out what foods were edible and what could be brought to the pot, if you like, so that you could then support individuals there, build them up, keep them going with their strength, help them understand what was there, and then take teams of educated individuals from, let's say, Britain, plumbers, or let's say farmers. Ask them if they wouldn't mind sharing some of their knowledge and going over to these places and helping with their last past machinery that is not good enough for them, but would be better served elsewhere rather than collecting dust or rusting somewhere. It could go off to these nations for them to use, to be able to build them up. Once the people there had learnt these ways, that Britain or whoever goes there and gets them familiar with the equipment and what to grow and what to look for and try and better the process. Once then the natives learnt that, then farmers could come away. Different individuals could come away, and they would then be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and then they'll be able to bring a product that could then be traded. And then the last pot of money that goes over is then the starting point for this nation to then be able to then begin to trade. Okay, I will trade you some of this for some of your potatoes. I will trade you some of this for some metal. And they would have some money. Yes. They would have food. Yes. They would then be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Yes. And they wouldn't deplete the pockets or pots here by keep sending this money, which is pointless because they would, whoever they're buying it from, you might as well have just bought the goods and sent it anyway. And then it would give people their jobs if they wanted and different things like that. So when seeing that video, it really it hit something in me. It really did. I didn't like seeing that video of that, and it left me quite depressed for a very long time, to be honest. So I tread around this subject very carefully, and that's then when I wanted to make a solar car, a car that runs on solar panels. And playing around with some certain solar panels, I managed to make several different types of motors go insanely fast. And then this would have been for them to collect water and bring it so that little girl didn't have to walk that many miles for her brothers, that she seemed like she was fighting a losing battle, but she didn't give up. It was that side of her little light that she had, that she just kept going despite all of those odds. And the odds are really against her. And I think that's like a setback and another setback, that if they die, that's going to set that little girl back even further, although it may not, because she seemed quite... And then the camera crew gave her a piece of peanut butter something, with a peanut butter bar or something like that. And rather than eating it herself, she went and started feeding her, I think it was maybe brother. I believe there was 2, maybe by remembering that video, although it was from a side-eyed glance, because it was quite difficult to watch that. I didn't like it at all. It's one of the things I don't like about being human. Although you're good, they're not. That's not great. That's a bit of a... I don't like it. It doesn't sit well with me. So it really got me then thinking down this path, and then it explored, and I explored further, and then I wrote to the council because of the Sainsbury's petrol station there, and there was talk about if electric cars were to come about, then there wouldn't be petrol being bought and they take too long to charge. Well, I was just thinking that if you made it with batteries in the boot that could be switched, you go to a petrol station, and if you're there for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, you then had mechanics that then undone the batteries, or a robot, like a car wash. Yes, but other than washing your car, it is going to be going into the back of the car, lifting up a battery, moving it out, and dropping in another one. Then you're able to go, so if your car was able to do 400 miles, for argument's sake, and you get to 350, and then these types of electric petrol stations would be every so many miles. And then all car companies would have to hit this buffer here. They'd all have to reach this. Then it didn't mean that there was such a strain on lithium. You could use all types of different batteries in these circumstances. You didn't have to rely on this method, depending on how well your petrol stations were aligned to each other. And it's no more inconvenient than it would be to go and fill your car up anyway. You would have to do that. And then you would pay for this service, much like you would to refuel. So it could then, rather than sticking 40 quid in your petrol tank worth of fuel, you go to the petrol station and you have a switched battery for half the price, let's say. You still pay, but it's half the price because that energy ain't free. And then while doing that, I wrote this over to the Breckland Council. I think I sent some over to the government as well. Which I don't know if Tories were in, Theresa May. And this just ran away back then. This ran away. And that would then be like these new electric stations, if you like, which would have created jobs. Then this built upon something else, which was then, if you had a hydrogen engine. You see, you hear people saying, oh, you can't have hydrogen engines because you don't want to see what happens to people when they get bloody blah when they've got a hydrogen car. Well, if you had a hydrogen engine, now if we take a rocket for example, right? This is my very crude drawing of a rocket. And we had a lot of machines that were pumped into it, yes,
Yeah.
that used the booster in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is fuel, yes?
Yeah.
Has the capacity to keep this rocket booster going, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And this booster, if you took a load of wind turbines, yes,
Yeah.
and you encased them,
Mm-hmm.
and the airflow was made to go this way, these would rotate, yes?
Yeah.
These would then be connected to an array of batteries, which were for the cars, if you like. That these would then begin to fast charge off of that dynamo process the batteries, yes?
Yeah.
And as they begin to charge the batteries, these would be at the petrol stations, and these rockets would be continuously supplying a fuel to the booster.
Yeah.
And the booster, rather than being made to give you lift into space,
Mm-hmm.
they don't need to be as big. They just need a series of wind turbines, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
that are built in a way that has the airflow of the rocket's fuel that comes out. That air movement that's really rapid would then power the motors.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would be able to utilize these wind turbines in a different way. So if you took the propellers off of all wind turbines and stacked them up, and you either had the airflow through the dynamo, but people will say that gets too hot.
Yeah.
Well, if you had them at a distance, that air still got to push through, but it cools down the further away you are from it. If this paddle was connected to a load of gears that then aimed into the wind turbines,
Mm-hmm.
you could then generate an awful lot of energy. You don't need to rely on oil.
Yeah.
You don't need petrol.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need coal.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need gas. All you need is the tenacity to build it and follow it. And not only that, you can also power houses off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that it's the best in the world, but you don't need gas.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need gas. You don't need coal.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you not need? You can power an awful lot off of this. If you can supply the booster, and again, a booster is a ridiculous size for this endeavor, and you remove the risk. If this ever went wrong, which it's less likely to these days, this is not only good for space. If you think about it, how easy is then space? You perfect, right? In this, could you, after year, wouldn't power companies, if the government were to do this, yes? Here, if .gov did this,
Yeah.
and they held on to the power that was being generated in this,
Yeah.
this would revolutionize. And each year, it would get better.
Mm-hmm.
If these rocket boosters then got better and we learned new things and a way to learn a little bit more, how much more closer is space travel? And not only how much is space travel, how much more further is it? How much more of a distance? So on a conventional rocket, you'll only get from here to here. But what if by building this to generate energy and power batteries, what if you could push the envelope to here,
Mm-hmm.
and each year that goes by, the envelope to go further in space off of one single booster?
Mm.
I say one single booster, but let's say that the technology gets so good, it gets you from point A to all the way over to point, let's say F. We'll go from there, A to F in a matter of a very good few years, yes, because the technology then, there would be demand on it. And if there's demand, well, you know, if you've got demand on this and people are paying bills that support it, you are ensuring the future of not just your own nation, but any other nation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got space at your hands, a sustainable energy supply. I mean, it's definitely, you have transport.
Yeah.
This came from a very dark moment in my life. This came from a very dark. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. That was hard. That made me shed tears seeing that video. But
Yeah.
yeah, just like that girl did, she's transforming her cards she was dealt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to too. So a little bit of her light rubbed off on me. I would say it's like that, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Kinda in that dark, just trying to.
Yeah.
But there would have to be a give back on that. That we'd have to say to ourselves that we would give to nations like that and bring them up to speed too. Just to stop another child going through that, it would be a great feeling for me, to be fair. I wouldn't like. And if people really did believe in reincarnation, they would do something about it. So, in these sort of ideas is in the hope that if you give this out to somebody, that somebody else who is capable of doing this will give to another nation.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is less fortunate than they are.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking of the just me, and that they would give out of the goodness of their heart the same way that something may or may not have been given to them, and that they would give a lot more, because it's not money that you get to take with you. No, it's that knowledge that you did something that helped somebody else. And I think that is what gets lost in this world of more money, more money, more money. Look at me, look at my wealth. Look at me, look at my wealth. Look at me, look at my wealth. And then there seems to be, whether on purpose or not, there seems to be this kind of fuck 'em attitude come. And I don't like it for myself. I don't like that. I really do not like it. So that has led me on a lot of thinking journey, and I've got these saved. For the individuals that had to print this out for me, there was a lot of. It wasn't an awkward silence. There was a level of. It's hard for them not to have read that. They did ask whether they could read through some of that, and I said, yes, you may. Of course you can. It's not a subject I like to talk about very much, but again, it's been a part of the journey that I think I've been on. So, but again, it's where that inspiration comes from, and it's not a great place. It's not a place of. It's not great. It's not great to say that we live in such a world where it's just so imbalanced.
Yeah.
And, you can throw money at these situations, but it is never going to go away.
No.
How these situations go away is, I think, is it with a very, very careful and steady hand and a very calculated, right, okay, we're going to support here, not in money, but in food. Not in this, but in some technology, just to get you on your feet. You've got this great thing going about your lands. You've got this great thing going with your lands. You've got this great thing going with your lands. And then you begin to lift up a nation. And then for me, it goes even deeper than that, because inside places that are really, really in the depths of poverty, how many cures for cancer are laying in the minds of people who are unable to release their full potential? How many breakthroughs for cures for diseases lie inside the minds of people who are dormant? But if given the chance or the opportunity, may be able to do something that helps not just you, but your parents, grandparents, fathers, sisters, brothers, mothers, dads, uncles and aunts in that situation. With the breakthroughs that could be made, what is destined in these minds of people that I believe that are limited to nothing more than just a lottery within a lottery within a lottery, surrounded by fuck 'em.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit very well with me, to be fair.
No,
So
it doesn't, does it?
no. So yeah, that is something that, yeah, I think this video kind of covers an awful lot
Yeah.
in that. But yeah, it was to the council,
Mm-hmm.
Breckland,
Yeah.
right into Theresa May.
Yes, you did.
That's where my journey started,
Yeah.
where enough was enough
Mm.
in my own. That's what kick-started it. So yeah. Yeah. But it comes from that little girl. If you think about it, it really does.
Yeah.
Just being able to walk in her shoes, it was very difficult to do, to be honest. And I think I've come a long way to be able to even get this out without having some sort of emotional response to that. Some people say the video was fake or this, that, and the other. I don't know. I don't think so. I honestly do not think so in that.
There are children without parents living there.
Yeah. And without water.
Yeah, they
have
have
to
to
walk
take
very many
care
miles.
of. Yeah.
And how much it would be very easy for her to just quit, but she doesn't.
Mm.
When she brought the water, she began bathing them and giving them a drink. But it was the food part that got me. It just seemed like one after the other, after the other, after the other of this little girl. It was hungry herself, but was always going the extra mile for someone who was more in need than she was.
Yeah.
Even though, in my view of that, she was in most need as well. And so young. So young.
She was very young, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And
I
the
think I
boy-
even sent that to you.
And the boys too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were a little bit older than she was.
Yeah, but still young. All of them very young.
Yeah, that's something. So, yeah. And I think then, if this all comes from that, and this is helpful for everybody now, then you should think where that really originates from.
Mm.
And then it would be a time to say to yourself, shouldn't you give?
Yeah.
Give.
Yeah.
More than just money, because money is
No.
everyone thinks, oh yeah, we send loads of money out there, but money isn't. What do you do with money in a nation that doesn't have money? You know, that's where I hear a lot of these things saying that they send money, and I'm just kind of a bit unsure of how that money actually. Okay, then you buy something and then it gets sent. Okay, that's also interesting, but we throw away so much food, and then people are like, well, we must give it to the people in our own. Yeah, that I partly agree with, but there's no way is there that many homeless people
Yeah.
that all of that food from supermarkets and everything else is feeding the homeless in the country.
It could be dehydrated, it could be canned as well, so it lasts longer than ready meal that is frozen as well.
Yeah. If all the shops united together during COVID, then they can all unite together in order to say, you know what? We're going to give this food out.
Yeah.
Not to be stockpiled, not to be held by individuals, because there's going to be a level of greed there.
Yeah.
It needs policing.
Yeah.
But as a way to then educate, bring up the energy levels, and then begin to start, moving forward in this sort of really truly leveling up, not,
Yeah.
And then if all supermarkets could do that around all worlds that are established, then that gives us all some common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Does it not? I mean, if
Yeah.
you throw EU into the mix, you throw Britain into the mix, America into the mix,
Yeah.
all nations, everywhere, China into the mix,
Yeah.
Russia, Japan, every single nation into the mix of all of your leftover foods
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to throw in a bin.
Yeah. And it's wasted
It
after
is.
that.
If that can't be collected,
Mm.
cooked,
Yeah.
especially if they're meat,
Mm.
and then canned, jarred, frozen,
Yeah.
and sent out to nations
Yeah.
to help build them up.
Yeah.
And I think that you can do it with your own people too that are homeless, and I think that's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But there's no way the homeless people here are eating all of the food that's being donated to food banks. I don't think it's all being donated to food banks. And there's an obvious reason for it. I mean, I think that people would take advantage of it here. I think people would take advantage and be like, okay, I'm not doing it. Why am I going to get that from you? I'm going to go here.
Yeah.
Which I understand. But in these nations, some of them, they're not going to be doing it for that reason.
Yeah, and especially for children that
Yeah.
are lonely,
Yeah.
that they need some start. They need either community or get their own piece of land or something.
Because you never know. You often wonder. Some people will say that, well, we managed to do it. How do you not know you didn't get a hand?
Yeah.
How do you know you were not helped yourself?
Yeah.
Then you began to help yourself.
Yeah.
So, touching, moving, but also very positive from a very negative.
Yeah.
And I hope that that positivity could go back and make someone else's life
Positive.
a lot more better than it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So battery swapping, again, was to try and take that situation that was said in the paper, I think it was, that, you know, the residents were complaining about the smell, which it was to move the factory.
Yeah.
Because in that part of the area of town, they didn't really have many houses. It was just moving the stuff a little bit.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, it took me a while to write it, to be honest, because I'm not the best at writing in the world, but I'll give it a good go. And yeah. And then there a journey went on. So yeah. Switching the batteries was like a car wash design that moved the batteries, did this, did that. And then you can use hydrogen engines to charge them.
Yeah.
So you can then say that your car is hybrid hydro, even though it's electric.
Because it uses the energy to
Because it
be
uses
charged.
the energy from a hydrogen engine.
Yeah.
And then again, this can be used with some gas, some oil, some this. You know,
Yeah.
because you can use, you know, that a battery isn't limited to what type of generator that charges it. It's batteries are not cultural. No, they're multi-purpose from what they can be charged with.
Yeah.
The fuel supply, it don't matter. It love energy. And any way that you can, even nuclear, hydrogen, this and this, fuel, because you've got petrol generators as well, diesel generators. Wow, that's crazy. Coal generators, solar generators, if you call it that. Technically it is. Wind generators.
Yeah.
And then you can turn these on and off. As opposed to nuclear, I think it's more you have to count for the year before.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a waste.
Yeah.
Don't you think that if everyone stopped using energy or there was more sunlight or more wind, you couldn't exactly go, I'll just lower the energy that's being pumped out of these. Maybe the newer ones, perhaps. I doubt it very much, but, you know, it's more versatile, and then it keeps your nuclear for a just in case, you know, or a moon base somewhere. Because wouldn't it be great then to convert, if you had it, so that you had hydrogen and it frees up your nuclear. What happens if you had a nuclear power station on the moon? You could convert the glass beads that are there, and you could convert the whole moon into glass and turn it into a greenhouse, therefore adding even more food to the planet. I mean, that would be very interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then would it be owned by corporations? No, because it would be owned by governments, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If they managed to get there and do that, it would be the governments that own that stuff. And then, you know, there would be a real selection of prices there, wouldn't there? And then just slingshot it off the moon. It would be easier to slingshot payloads from the moon towards Earth than it would be to the Earth towards the moon, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't take very much, and after all, it's just got to hit the planet in a certain way. Some of these Virgin planes that you get that, you know, begin to slow down without needing a heat shield because of the way they are designed. If you designed a load of payload that was slung shot off of the moon towards the Earth in just you only need to get one done, and then you'll know how to just send them. As they come down, they can land quite nicely, can't they? You don't need any fancy technology for that. It's just the way you build the cases, and then robots could harvest. You wouldn't need people on the moon to do that. You just need robots. Once the crop's grown, robots go and take what it needs, packs it up, slingshot it off the moon, and then it lands on the planet. Just by using the Virgin, was it Space One or something? Something like that. Virgin, the one that went to space that opened up and it came down nice and gently. Can't remember what it's called now. Maybe it's not that. Name. But even still, these types of designs you could very easily get, and then that comes off of nuclear. And if the nuclear power plant on the moon ever did go critical, it would be a shame. You don't want it to, but if it did, would it be all that bad? You're not going to have Chernobyl. Hopefully not, but then you're quite, I don't know, set up, really. And if anything went bad on the Earth, you've got a whole base full of food. And again, Mars, do you really want to go and terraform Mars, knowing that the gases are leaking off of Mars bit by bit? You go and terraform it, and you start losing all the gases. You need to collect that carbon. Because carbon is a big prize, although it gets a lot of bad rap. If we keep going bad about carbon, yes, bad under certain circumstances, but carbon is very good in other circumstances because you need carbon to grow stuff. And if you converted everything into oxygen and you vented all your gases off of Mars, well, what are you going to grow in? These are the things, there's a very fine balance to be had. And what you grow on the moon, you could suck out the gases, the oxygen, and you could bring this to Earth. Vent it out and collect some carbon from the Earth and take it to the moon. Vent the carbon in the greenhouse. Plants grow, convert that carbon into oxygen. The oxygen then gets collected and brought, you need the reverse of each. So you need an oxygen collector on the moon if there's a base, yes? And you would need a carbon extractor on the Earth. Interesting. That would be very interesting. But still, that's the journey so far. What a ride it's been. And what a ride it's going to be. Not even halfway through it yet, but we're getting there. So yeah, there you are. So my paper trail is somewhere back here, I think. I ran in 2015, actually. So... whew. Interesting. Right, well, I'm going to leave this one here. I think I got that out quite nicely, to be fair. There we are.